Hey everyone, Mecha here, and today I have something completely different for you. Something really out of the left field. So, a while ago I was just chilling on Discord and I got a DM from Boo. Now, if you don't know who Boo is, she has drawn a lot of really cool art for me. She has this really adorable art style that I sometimes show off on my stream and in my videos. She made the art for Plinkett Emblem actually, a lot of it. And she linked me this video of the Rolling Girl meme, but with FE4 characters. Now, I am not overly familiar with the Rolling Girl meme, but as far as I know, it generally comes down to you loop a character's animation as they roll down a hill, and sometimes other characters come in, and it's cute, and there's always this same song behind it. And that's really all I know about it, but this time I looked at it a bit more closely and I realized just how much love and work has gone into it, how many easily missable details there are in the video. It's only 3 minutes long, but it's full of them, so even if you've seen it before, it might be worth looking at it again but a bit more closely, because this is way more than just Sigurd rolling down a hill. It actually, for example, it has every single playable FE4 character in it, as well as a couple of non-playable characters like antagonists and NPCs. And in a way, this animation actually has the most important points of FE4's story packed into it, as well as a lot of really cute tiny details and inside jokes that you only really notice if you look at it again and again. So that's what I did, and hopefully I caught them all. So I thought I'd share the fruits of my labor with you, but first let's watch the whole thing normally, see how many you can catch. By the way, I'm including the original in the description, Nico video and YouTube, in case you want to watch it that way later. So there's that. I wanted to get a hold of the original artist, but it's been pretty difficult, so I couldn't really. I'm hoping that's okay. If by some miracle you are watching this and you understand English, thank you so much. Okay, so now that you've seen it in full, let's slow things down a bit and see what's there to notice. If you haven't played Genealogy yet, I do think a bit of a spoiler warning is appropriate here. 99% of what is shown in this video won't be new to anyone probably, but still, like I said, this animation plays out the big story of FE4. There is of course that one enormous big plot twist that is going to be brought up, so if you somehow manage to avoid that, you might want to stop watching this video. But if you're even remotely familiar with FE4, you probably know which twist I'm talking about, and you're probably safe. So, fair warning. Alright, so it starts off with Sigurd falling and rolling down the hill. Now right away, one layer of depth here that I really like is that as non-serious and as silly as the Rolling Girl meme is, it's actually really fitting for Sigurd, because without knowing it, the guy actually does fall into the events of FE4. He has almost no control over anything, he's just being strung along for the ride for most of it really. So it's actually really fitting for him to be rolling like this. And then Arden, Noish and Alec come in, and really quickly Arden is left behind, just like he is in gameplay, very fitting. Then Lex and Azel show up, of course, really briefly. Then we got Quan and Ethlyn. And what I like here is the little heart that symbolizes their love, because, you know, they start off married. And it also symbolizes their lover critical, which, of course, they are the first characters to have in the game. So it's also the game's way of introducing you to that. Then we got Lachesis and her NPC knights, and the knights get left behind as well, because Lachesis stays with you, whereas the knights stay the same. Now I do need to note here that for the first generation, things happen mostly in order, but not really. The story isn't really played out exactly in order, but for a lot of it, it is. So you're gonna see things roughly the way they happen in FE4, but not quite. Then of course we got Finn and then Midir. Again, the same order that they join in gameplay, because Midir joins after he sees the first castle, whereas Finn is with you from like turn 3 or so. I like how Finn seems to struggle a lot more than Midir when he's rolling down. Maybe because he's bad versus axes, but I don't know if that's intentional. I mean, it's not like Midir did very well in the opening of FE4 either. Then we got Sylvia, Lewin, and Ernest, and then that changes into Mania, Lewin, and Ernest. At least we agreed that this is Mania. Boo and I, we spent some time analyzing this. I will say, disclaimer, I'm not 100% sure on every single character in this one. I'm fairly bad at identifying characters sometimes. I've just been going by comparing the colors used and their outfits used and their hair compared to their original art. Their actual in-game art too as well, but the SNES had a limited color palette, so the official art has been more helpful than anything else, but I might misidentify some characters here and there, just a fair warning. This is just my interpretation of who these characters are, but I'm pretty sure that this has got to be Mania, because the only other character it could really be is like Queen Rana, but she has black hair, so probably not her. Next up are Holden and Ira. Holden took me a while to identify because he joins quite a bit later than Ira, but I think this is Holden and Ira. Then we have Oifi and Shannon, a really fitting pair together. Usually when 2 characters or 3 characters on the screen together, it's because they have some kind of relationship to one another. And in the case of Oifi and Shannon, of course, they're both present in Gen 1, but they're not playable, whereas in Gen 2 they are, so that's why they're paired together nicely. It's kind of cute. Speaking of relations, you can see that very clearly with this part here, where you have Sigurd, Quan, and Eldigan. They went to the academy together, I'm pretty sure. I think it's referenced by Eldigan in chapter 1, so I thought that was pretty cool. And it's going to come back later too. Then you have Tiltu and Claude, with Claude flying on the Valkyrie staff. I'm gonna guess this is some pretty liberal interpretation of what you can do with the Valkyrie staff. I'm pretty sure it's just referring to how Claude has like contact with the higher ups and the gods and stuff, and that's why he's able to fly, whereas Tiltu is just gonna be rolling down the hill. Next up, Bridget and Nadine were pretty easy to identify because, you know, they're siblings. The character on the left, as far as I can tell, is Andre. He's their brother. He killed their father, so they have a pretty rocky relationship, but this Rolling Girl meme, it just doesn't care. It just puts characters like enemies and stuff just all together. It's cute. This one is Travant, as far as we can tell. It's kind of weird for him to be here because he doesn't play a very big role at this point. There's a lot of points later where he could show up instead that would be more relevant. My guess is here is because he popped up briefly in chapter 3, and Bridget is also introduced around the same time. So I think that's why we see Travant here. Next up we have Beowulf, Jamka, and Du. Jamka and Du are of course introduced together in chapter 1, so it makes sense for them to be together, and I think they just kind of fit Beowulf in here because he doesn't really have any close relationships with anyone else, aside from maybe Lachesis, so he's just kind of thrown in here. I guess the only other relationship between these 3 is that they all have a total lack of holy blood, and that could be why they're here together, but this is part of what makes them so hard to identify sometimes, is that it can be a little arbitrary where they are, but I'm pretty sure that this is Beowulf, Jamka, and Du. Then of course we have Arvis, Sigurd, and Deirdre. And yeah, then Sigurd vanishes into fire and Seliph appears instead. When I get to this part, every time I rewatch this, because, you know, I had to rewatch it a lot, it still kind of hits me. Even though it's just this tiny little micro presentation of what happens in FE4, it is still very, very sad to see Sigurd just vanish and then Seliph appears instead, all beaten up and rolling down that hill. And then to make matters worse, Manfroy flies in laughing at Seliph because his plan is totally coming to fruition. And he's flying around on what I think is the Book of Lopter. I don't think I can really tell by the symbols or anything on it, but I'm just pretty sure it's that. It's probably around this time that Manfroy is actually using that Lopter book to do what you know he does. So now we've officially shifted to Gen 2 with Seliph, and then soon after that we got Lana, and then Paddy and Faval rolling in. Again, the order gets messed up a little more into Gen 2 compared to Gen 1, but even in Gen 1 it was very strict. So I think this is the way that makes most sense. Now, this next part is one that confused me for quite a bit. I'm pretty sure this is Lester, Dermot, and Tristan. And Tristan is the substitute for Dermot. So if you don't get Dermot, for example, because you didn't pair up Lachesis or because she died, then you get Tristan instead. And it's kind of weird. They can never coexist within FE4. But they have a couple of instances like this where the substitute appears alongside the character they're replacing, and I think this is the only way everything makes sense. The hair color and the outfit and the official artwork, they all match up, so I'm pretty sure it's those characters. But they look a little weird, I will admit. But yeah, Lester, Dermot, Tristan, as far as I know. By far the most confusing part for me, someone crashes into them, he goes really fast, and I have no idea who it is. I discussed it with Boo pretty elaborately, and I think we agree that this is the Hero Axe boss from chapter 6, Smith. And the reason we think that is, well, first of all, Smith is very strong against these characters. He has a Hero Axe and he kills them pretty much in one round. He's very strong, very annoying. He appears in the same chapter that they join in, and he has that long blonde hair going on. That's what I think that is Smith, but, you know, it could honestly be a lot of other people. This is just my most likely guess. I have thoughts at some point that it was like Oifi, Ares or something, but none of them really fit very well. So I think the best guess is Smith. And then I have no idea what's happening on this frame. It might be part of the original meme, All I can say is the left guy looks a bit like Paul Mark, you know, the guy that gives Seliph the tear thing. It makes no sense at all in this situation, so comment section help me out if you have any idea what the hell is going on here. You probably won't be seeing this frame unless you pause it like I did, but when I saw it I kind of laughed my ass off. This next one had me confused for a bit as well. This is Nana and Jan. Jan is Nana's replacement. It took me way longer than it should have to identify Nana, but when we saw the little hairpin, we kind of confirmed that yeah, this is Nana and Jan. And then Finn comes in with them too, and Finn of course is very much related to Nana, so that makes the most sense that they join like that in chapter 7. Leaf isn't here. He probably should have been, but he appears later, so don't worry. They did not leave Leaf behind. Next is Sed and Fee. Fee took me a little bit, but she has the earrings in, and she is Sed's sister, so it makes the most sense. We got Johalva and Johan. I think their names were changed by Project Naga, but these are the names I know the best, so I apologize for just calling them that. You can see one little detail that I like is Johan throws a rose because, you know, he's a lover boy, or rather, not a lover boy, but like he hits on Larce and stuff. He's a very romantic guy. He's the Sane of this game, the Saul of this game, the womanizer basically. Then you got Ulster and Larce. I like that they're next because both Johalva and Johan, of course, they lost after Larce, so I like that they're after one another in this sequence. Then you got Oifi and Shannon again, but this time it's their Gen 2 counterparts, so they're older now. Also pretty cute, but they're still paired together, of course. I still think they should have had way more attention in FE4 than they did in the actual game. It's kind of sad. Hannibal comes by. He's holding 2 signs, and according to Boo, they say Corporal and Charlo, and you know, kind of identifies that you have to choose between them. It's probably one of the harder choices to make between substitute and actual child, so I think that's cute. Then we have 2 very fast waves of all the substitutes that are left, actually, or most of them. I think there might be some left. Yeah, there's some left after this. So the first wave, as far as I can tell, from top left to bottom right, is Femina, which is Fee's substitute, Daisy, who is Patty's substitute, Ratney, who is Larce's substitute, Layla, who is Lean's substitute, Mana, who is Lana's substitute, or Rana substitute, however you pronounce it. Then the next wave, we got 5 more. I think this is Hawk, who is Set's substitutes, Aselio, Favel's substitutes, Ruddleban, who is Ulster's substitute, Charlo, which is Corporal's substitute, of course, and the last is Dimna, who is Lester's substitute. And they all, actually, looking at it, they all fit into the pairs of the substitutes. So if you look at the first wave and the second wave, it's all brothers and sisters in the same positions. I'll make it more clear in the video when I'm editing it, but that's how it is. Then next is Corporal on his own, and then Lean on her own. And the cute thing about Lean is the little hearts that come out, they also happen when she dances for someone, like any dancer in this game. I think Lean in particular was done really, really adorably in this animation. It's absolutely adorable. They both make sense to be on their own because they were separated pretty soon after birth, I think. Or rather, they were never really together like all the other substitutes were. So another cute detail there. Then we have Arion, and after that Altena. And then we have a bunch of Frege people. So I believe this is Arthur. And then for some reason he's also paired along with Ishtor, himself, and Amit, which is his substitute. And then after that we have the female variant of that. So we got Ishtar, Tinny, and Linda. Linda is of course Tinny's substitute. So that pretty much covers all the kids, at least the one from pairable parents. Next up is these 3 kids, Seliph, Leaf, and Aris, which is of course a mirror from Sigurd, Quan, and Eldigan from Gen 1. And of course then we get a bunch of really adorable fan art. I believe it's fan art, not treasure art, but correct me if I'm wrong. Of these families when they were actually together and happy for, you know, as long as it lasted. You got one cute piece of artwork from Quan, Ethlyn, Altena, and Leaf. Another one with, I believe this is Eldigan, his wife, who is not seen in the game, but she exists. And of course their son Aris. And then finally you got Sigurd, Deirdre, and Seliph. And for this last bit, this is really hard to spot unless you look closely. Seliph, Leaf, and Aris turn into their dads for a very split second while up in the air, upside down, and this is one of the most moving moments in the thing for me, like probably the second most moving behind the split between Gen 1 and Gen 2. And this is all happening very fast, so it's hard to process, especially with the music coming into your ears. The lyrics of the song are actually kind of sad and like kind of grippy too. It's hard to explain, but for some reason, even though it's a silly meme, it just really gets to me every time I watch it. Even though it's just a 3-minute silly Rolling Girl video, this is the moment where I'm like, FE4, you're so good. Why does it hurt so much? But that's just me, you know. Then we get to the ending. We got Julia, Seliph, and Julius together. This of course symbolizes the final battle. And then once it's over, you got Julia, Seliph, and Lewin. And Lewin vanishes just like he does in the game for reasons I will not name explicitly, for spoilery reasons. But that's another moment that, you know, makes me kind of go, FE4, why you do this to me? And that's the whole story. That is the whole story of FE4 presented in about 3 minutes of video, but it took me about 15 minutes to like dissect it all. And I gotta say, I usually, when people make like very liberal interpretation of a work, I'm always like, I don't know if the author really intended that. That seems like that might be a bit of projection on the reader's part, rather than something the writer actually did. In this case, I am 100% sure that the writer, the maker of this video, intended pretty much all of what I just said, because, or almost all of it, because it's so good, it's so in character, and it's so amazingly done, and it's still so subtle. I think it's kind of sad that a lot of people will miss it, because they'll see this and they're like, oh, that's cute, I see FE4 characters, hey, I recognize that, but they won't see everything. But hopefully now you've seen everything. And yeah, I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this little presentation. It's not something I usually do, but I just thought it deserved a lot more attention than it got. Even though like the video has like plenty of views, don't get me wrong, but I think some people missed just how much detail has gone into it, and I really love that. So yeah, again, not something I usually make, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll make some more of it. I have no idea what else that could even be remotely like this, what else it could be, but just let me know, I guess. I'll see you around. Peace.